Is our phone number. Yeah, a lot of businesses that are dealing with the increasing costs of healthcare related specifically to Obamacare are beginning to add a surcharge to the bill for Obamacare. Of course, they could just raise their prices. They don't have to specifically tell you. I mean, a business doesn't have to tell you why they're raising their prices. They could just raise their prices. But I think it's good if you let your customers know why the prices are going up instead of just burying the costs in the bill. Why not itemize it? In fact, a lot of companies began to do that for fuel. Whenever I go into a taxi now, there's always a fuel surcharge. A lot of the airlines did that. They add a fuel surcharge. I mean, why? Why don't they just raise prices? Because if they just raise prices, the customers are like, hey, why are you raising my prices? You're greedy. You're just trying to make a bigger profit. So when they add this fuel surcharge, it's kind of like they can say, look, we're not really raising the prices. We're just charging you extra because our fuel costs went up. And of course, then why don't they just have a surcharge for all their materials or all their, the electrical, different costs. They can have it'd be a huge bill if they itemized, every cost that they have. But I guess it's more of a public relations. They don't want their customers to think, look, we're just jacking it up. And then sometimes they say, look, if the price of fuel comes down, we'll take away the fuel surcharge. I'm not really sure how the CPI deals with a surcharge. If they add a surcharge for fuel, does it not count as a price hike, right, if they break it out like that? So some people decided that they would do the same thing with Obamacare, that they would just add a surcharge for Obamacare. And I'm all for that. I think that's great because I think it's important for consumers to understand why prices are going up. And I remember back, I forget what, a year or two ago, there were some companies that were threatening to do that, and the Obama administration was putting pressure on them not to, and they caved in. But apparently, some of these companies are doing it. And this is a report. This is from MSNBC. They're reporting on a restaurant. I think it's in Florida that is adding a small surcharge right now. I think it's only 1%. Surcharge for Obamacare, which is very small. I mean, it's going to get even bigger, but maybe now that they got that line item on the bill, it's there. Now, as their insurance costs go up, they can increase the Obamacare surcharge. But, of course, this is really pissing off the people on the left. And here's an example of that. Here's Alex Witt, anchor on MSNBC, talking about this. This is from a couple days ago. Here, cut number 4.
Okay, so it's one thing to not support them, but I'm curious, Josh, is it even legal to just add on a surcharge like that? I mean, it's essentially a tax.
Basically, it is a tax, and quite frankly, they said they're doing it so that they don't have to have an additional tax on the customers who come in. But it is a 1% surcharge. One can ask the question, well, why don't you add a surcharge for the cost of electricity or the cost of leasing out your business or the cost of basically ordering the food that the people are going to eat? Mm-hmm. One can argue it, but it is their business, and so I guess they can do however they want to do it.
You got this woman who's saying, isn't this illegal? It's like they're opposing a tax on their customers. No, they're not. I mean, they can invoice their customers any way they want. I mean, their customers don't have to eat there. It doesn't really matter. But yes, he's true. They could invoice, itemize all of their various costs. But most people, when you go into a restaurant, you realize that your bill has to cover the cost of running the restaurant. It has to cover the cost of the rent. It has to cover the wages of your employees. It's got to cover the food products and the energy used in preparation. Everybody knows that. But all of a sudden, if you're starting to raise your prices, and the only reason you're doing that is because now there's this new rule, I like the fact that some businesses will go out of their way to let customers know this is why we're raising your price. It is a political statement, though, obviously, that you can make a choice. You can decide to tell your customers why you're raising their prices or not. You could just raise the prices. But maybe they think, look, at least they'll know that, we're doing this not because we're just trying to goose our profits, but we're responding to this government mandate. And there are costs associated with this mandate, and one of the costs is you're going to have to pay more for food if you eat in this restaurant, right? But it pisses off the left because they don't like that. They want to keep the cost of government buried so that consumers don't realize how much all this free stuff costs. Here's a little bit more of the conversation here, cut number 5.
Anyone worried about a ripple effect here, that other restaurant chains are going to follow suit?
It's possible that others could follow suit. Now, as I mentioned before, these are the ones that are in Central Florida as well as up in Jacksonville. But there are other ones that are located here on the west side of the state here in Tampa as well as on the east side of the state in Orlando. They say they're not going to charge this additional surcharge. They say they don't understand why this particular franchisee is choosing to do it, but they say that's not going to be part of the way they do business. Again, we've seen other businesses that have done this. I know there's a restaurant in Los Angeles that's also joined suit. So it's possible that you could see businesses adding this fee, but at the same time, they could have that, as you say, ripple effect and a negative effect, whereas customers say, I'm not going to come buy a hamburger or some wings from you guys.
Absolutely. Okay.
So, you know, when she's talking about a ripple effect, she's talking about the itemization of the surcharge. See, all restaurants are going to have to raise their prices to cover the increased cost associated with Obamacare. And that's not necessarily what this announcer is concerned about. She's not concerned about restaurants raising their prices. She's just concerned about them blaming it on Obamacare. See, she wants them to raise their prices in a way that the customers don't understand why the prices are going up. Because, you know, then they can always blame the restaurants for gouging their customers and putting profits before people and stuff like that. She just doesn't want the customers to be informed as to the reason for that particular price hike. You know, and the idea that, well, maybe some customers won't want to eat there, yeah, they take that risk. I mean, you have the risk that some liberals who think Obamacare is great, they might be offended by the restaurateur disclosing the fact that their cost of Obamacare has resulted in him raising his price rather than just raising his price and not telling anybody why. Right? And so it's possible. But there could be some people that might appreciate knowing why their costs are going up. But the costs are going up. So it's not really like people aren't going to eat there because now that restaurant is more expensive than all the other restaurants because they add an Obamacare surcharge and the other restaurants don't. They're all going to add the cost. Everybody is going to raise prices as a result of this. The only difference is some people might do it with a surcharge, and some people might bury the costs in the price and just raise the prices without, you don't have to call it a surcharge. Right? It's, you know, it's just the restaurant trying to be more honest on this particular topic because the president tried to sell this plan as if it's not going to cost anybody anything. I mean, not only was it if you like your health care, you can keep it. He sold it to us is it's going to make the economy better. It's going to lower costs for businesses because he was saying businesses are struggling with the high cost of health insurance. And we're going to bring down the cost of health insurance with Obamacare. And that's going to benefit businesses. So according to the president, businesses should be lowering their prices because of all the benefits that they receive from Obamacare. Right? That is how it was sold to the public. So I think, you know, it's almost a public service when you have a business that, you know, just says, no, that's not how it is. Right? That we have to raise prices because it isn't making us more efficient. It is making us less efficient.